Hello everyone, this is The Question, and this is my manga reading log for the month of November 2023. With reading logs, I usually try to focus on one or two books, larger series. So obviously, as you can tell by this picture, we got Banana Fish and My Love Mix-Up were the two big series that I really wanted to get into for this month, and then just kind of throw in other stuff that I just kind of caught my eye on the shelves as I was going along. So let's get into it. I'm recovering from COVID, so my voice is a little scratchy, feeling fine, just minor cold symptoms, but otherwise feeling good. So wanted to get this video made. So let's get right into it. Okay, so starting off, we have Banana Fish by Akemi Yoshida. I read through all 19 volumes of this series this month, and I went in pretty blindly to this series. The only thing I really knew about it was that it was a story about a killer and that it had some BL elements to it. That's pretty much all that I had gotten from it, and yes and no on both those points. So at its core, this is an 80s crime drama. This was written in the mid 80s to early 90s, if I'm not mistaken, but it takes place in 80s New York. And I could easily have seen this be a movie or TV series from that time frame, like an early Martin Scorsese film. Has that same kind of vibe to this. It follows Ash, who was our lead, who is a handsome gang leader that we find out was groomed as a child and used as a sex slave by Dino Golzine, head of a mafia organization. So Ash, at the age of 17, he gets involved in this elaborate investigation into what Banana Fish is, which is obviously the title of the series, after it is mentioned to him during a gang killing, and is also the words his Vietnam veteran brother says before shooting at his own squadron. So over the course of these 19 volumes, the cast of character grows with various rival gangs. We have different police officers and detectives, reporters, and then most importantly, Japanese photographer assistant Iji, who ends up building a very close bond with Ash and gets dragged into all the danger that follows Ash everywhere. So that is a very short kind of wrap up of what this story is. It goes in some very weird places. It has a ton of great characters, very well written. It has got a lot of twists and turns. The friendships throughout the series they feel real. You could feel the growth between the characters and from our lead from volume 1 to volume 19. Negatives, it did get repetitive a bit. There is a little bit of repetitiveness in the amount of times that Ash kind of gets kidnapped, has to free himself. There's a lot of that. And it definitely feels of its time in regards to its gay characters, how they are written. Every character in this story that is kind of shown to be gay is either a pedophile or a rapist or both. It is obviously implied that Ash and Iji's relationship is probably more than just a friendship, but that is never shown in the story. So all the characters that are actually like out gay or, you know, doing homosexual acts, they are all either pedophiles or rapists. There's not like one that I could even find that was not that. So that's, you know, that's not great. There definitely could have been some better representation there, but still highly recommended if you're looking for a solid crime series with great characters and an intriguing mystery. I highly recommend this one. The lead is very well written, and I'm sure there's probably in Japan either a live action series of this or an anime, but yeah, I can definitely see this being, you know, an HBO series or something like that. It would be a great fit for that. One thing that did baffle me after I read this series, though, I'm always baffled after reading a series like this that is so huge and popular and well regarded. So I'll go online to see, you know, okay, well, what else can I read by this creator? And there's not a single other series that was released in English by this creator, even though she has a bunch of other works that have been released, like critically acclaimed works in Japan. And the only thing we ever got in English was Banana Fish. Very bizarre. You would think like, oh, they released a super popular series in English, let's put out some more of our works. No, just Banana Fish. That I find very weird. So here is all 19 volumes. Thankfully, a bunch of these were reprinted in the last year or two, so I was able to back order them all from Barnes & Noble, the ones that I didn't have, and they all kept coming in every month or two. Another volume would get reprinted. So over the last couple of years, I was able to get all of these, which is awesome. So that was Banana Fish. Next up, the second big thing I read through this month, I read through all 9 volumes of My Love Mix-Up, which just concluded with volume 9 within the last couple months. And this was just a cute, like it says, love mix-up between these 3 characters. This boy has a crush on this girl, and then she drops her eraser and he picks it up and notices it has this boy's name on it. And this boy asks to borrow the eraser and notices that it has his name written on it. So he thinks he has a crush on him. So just a very funny, kind of confusing mix-up of a story that goes on throughout this series. Our main character here, he very much reminds me of Finn from Adventure Time, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Just the way he's drawn, his face animations, the way he acts, very Finn-like to me. But at its core, this is just a cute romance story. The characters are cute. It's not anything deep. It's not anything must read, but if you're looking for a cute romance series, definitely check this one out. I also was collecting My Love Story, which is by the same artist, but that was one I was really excited to read. But I think 2 volumes still haven't been reprinted that I'm missing. So once I get all those, I'll definitely check out that series because I did really enjoy the artwork in this one. So here is all the volumes, really nice covers. And here is 8, here is 9, and that is My Love Mix-Up. Okay, so next up is a short story collection in 2 volumes, and that is Short Program by Mitsuru Adachi, who is who is responsible for one of my favorite manga of all time, and that is Cross Game. Unfortunately, we have not got a lot of his series released in English. This one is long out of print. Thankfully, I was able to get both these volumes over time for a very cheap price. So, but these are pretty hard to find. So the first volume is in this An America Extra Viz release from a long time ago. And it is a little bit larger size, but this one goes from left to right. Just a bunch of really good short stories, most of them about love and heartbreak, but they all have that human element that Adachi is so well known for. So here is volume 1. And then volume 2 they released in more of a standard Viz size manga volume under the Action line. This one's about the same thickness, but a little bit smaller, and this one does go right to left. So I think volume 2 was a little harder to find than volume 1, but like most short story collections, there was some stories that I didn't care for as much, but there was also some really fantastic ones in here, some really emotional ones in here. Just a really great collection of stories. I think he released more of these in Japan, but all we got was the first 2 collections in English. But like I said, these all are short stories, so you can buy these. You can read these 2 volumes. You don't have to read other volumes since this is all we got. So great short story collections. Glad to have this in my collection. I wish we could get more of Adachi's work in English. I know Denpai, I think, is releasing something either later this year or next year by him. But yeah, we definitely need more of his works in English. Okay, so next up, I read through the 2-volume short series Slumbering Beauty. It is by this creator Yumi Yunita, who I've never read anything before, I don't think. It says here the creator of Bunny Drop, which is a series I've never read. And it follows our lead character here, who's a high school girl obsessed with sleep, and she ends up being followed around by the sleep spirit who recruits her to work for him, and then she ends up wanting to become a sleep spirit on her own. So the artwork in this is very unique. I really like the art, the kind of dark blacks that happen in this. The art's very nice. The story was okay. It didn't really hook me. I mean, if it was anything longer than 2 volumes, I would have dropped it at this point anyways. it does wrap up nicely. So if you're looking for a short 2-volume series, this might be for you. But at least for me, it was, you know, story just barely average, but the art was very nice. So that is Slumbering Beauty. Okay, so next up we have a short story collection, and that is Wild Calm Period by Yumi Tamura. This, I think, is out of print. I don't think this is in print anymore. This is an older Viz release, and it features 3 short stories. This is by the same creator who did Basura and then Don't Call It Mystery. I've only read one other thing from her, and I didn't really care for it for that much. This one I thought was okay. It was, you know, average, I would say, for a short story collection. None of the 3 really wowed me, but none of them were bad or anything. The artwork, I'm not the biggest fan of her artwork, at least in the 2 releases that I've read of hers. But I'm definitely, you know, I have been buying Don't Call It Mystery. I'm going to check that one out. That's a really high regarded one. I definitely want to check that one out. But at least for this one, I mean, I'll keep it just because I'm into short story collections, but definitely not one that I would recommend to everyone. Next up, we have a one-shot, and that is Socrates and Love. This is based on a novel, and this one, I hadn't heard anybody talk about this one before. I picked this up at a used place a long time ago, and it is almost exactly what you expect it to be. As it mentions on the back, it's basically about a guy whose the love of his life passes away, and he spends, you know, this whole volume, or this story is just kind of him reminiscing about their relationship and how much he loved her. So that's the premise of the story, and it goes exactly the way that you think it's going to go. It is cute, it's romantic, but it also, because it's a short, it's kind of shoved into this short manga 1 volume. It does go through things very fast, so it's hard to get too emotionally attached to any of the characters and to really get involved in the story. But I did enjoy it. It was fine, but just not, you know, nothing special as far as romance stories go. Okay, so next we have a volume 1, a new series. It is Timone's B-Side Volume 1, and this series follows our main character here, who is a big Idol fan, and she takes on a part-time job as a housekeeper to support her hobby, and she ends up becoming the housekeeper just randomly for her favorite idol. And she finds out that he is not at all what he seems like as his public persona. He is actually very insecure and emo in his day-to-day life. And so she ends up becoming not just his housekeeper, but she also kind of ends up becoming his life coach / friend at the same time. So it was a cute series, although it does have, you know, some darker elements, but I did really enjoy this first volume, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. So I'll definitely continue this one. Okay, so another volume 1 we have is the Darwin Incident Volume 1. It is about our lead character here, who is half chimpanzee, half human. He was created in an animal testing lab, was broken out, and then adopted and raised by a human family. And when he turns 15, he goes to school for the first time. So he's basically a new student at a school, which very weird. Everybody kind of forgot about him for 15 years. And then he's just 15 years later appears at this school, and all the kids are kind of, you know, don't know what to make of it. He becomes friends with one character. There's this very cartoonish vegan animal rights group in this story that kind of reminds me of the group from 12 Monkeys, if you've ever seen that movie. It's a little over the top with how they're shown, but it was a fun first volume. I like the story. I want to see where it goes, so I'll probably keep going on with this at least for another few volumes. Continuing on volume 1s, we have the Moon on a Rainy Night Volume 1. This is a new Yuri series about a girl with hearing issues, basically starting up a friendship or relationship with another girl at school. And it's our character here on the left is the one with the hearing issues. She's kind of been bullied her whole life, and so she's put up this wall to protect herself. And so this girl here wants to become friends with her and tries to break down that wall. So it's basically just them two getting to know each other over the course of this first volume, her kind of becoming more open at school with the other kids. The artwork is really nice. I like the big kind of panels, the big look to the characters. Just a really good first volume of a Yuri series, a Yuri high school romance. I really enjoyed it, so I'll definitely check out more of this. Okay, next we have Nina the Starry Bride, another volume 1. This one I hadn't pre-ordered, but I heard people rave about it so much I decided to pick it up, and this was a great starter first volume. It follows our lead girl here, who is a orphaned girl who ends up getting abducted because she has a very unique eye color that is the same as the recently deceased princess of the kingdom that nobody knows died, and so they're capturing her and going to have her act as the princess's replacement without anybody knowing and hopefully catching on. So it's basically her now living as a princess, as she was an orphaned, kind of living on the streets, young child, and now she's being raised as a princess, so she has to like deal with those issues. Plus she's got a crush on her captor here, so there's definitely some romance elements going on, but a really good first volume, really good world building and start of this series, so looking forward to seeing where this one goes. Next up, we have the final volume of a short 2-volume autobiographical series called Until I Love Myself, The Journey of a Non-Binary Manga Artist. The first volume I read a couple months ago, and then the second volume came out. I still think that this would have been better received and released, just, with it being 2 short volumes, having it be in an all-in-one, read it all in once. But it was a good conclusion. The first one was more the story about the creator here getting sexually harassed and mistreated by the person that the manga creator that they were an assistant for. And then this second volume is more them trying to get closure and kind of, try to make sense of what happened to them. So worth a read. It was a good autobiographical story. But like I said, it either could have been combined into one volume or, kind of edited down into one volume. It did seem to kind of go a little repetitive in spots, but definitely worth a read if you're interested in LGBTQ stories and autobiographical manga. Definitely check this one out. Okay, next up we have a new Glacier Bay release, and that is Give Her Back to Me. I really like the cover and the look of this book. It's got a very nice cover design, really nice looking release. It is a smaller, thinner release, maybe a quarter the size of a standard manga volume. And I'm not going to go too much into detail in the story just because it's so short. I don't really want to ruin anything, but it's basically about 2 sisters and a cursed mirror that one of them goes into, and it is an interesting story. I did enjoy this, but it was for being short, it was very confusing at times. I had to reread like whole sections to try to figure out what person had things happen to them. There was a lot of confusion going on. I almost reread this thing twice just to kind of try to get it in my head what actually happened. And I still don't think I got it all the way, but definitely enjoyable. I did enjoy this one. It's not one of my favorite Glacier Bay books, but it's also not one of my least favorite, so I'd put it kind of right in the middle, but definitely a really nice looking release. It's got a nice, dust jacket, just a really nice release, just like most of Glacier Bay's stuff that comes out. Next up, we have another short story collection, and this is Kafka. This is by I think this is the first manga that Pushkin Press has released, and very nice looking release here. When I saw it and it was this way, I thought it was going to be, flipped left to right, but it is actually right to left inside. It's just the cover is like that. And as you can tell here, just some really great artwork. The big selling point of this is how great the art is. I'm not very knowledgeable about Kafka. I haven't read any of Kafka's books, any of Kafka's stories. So even if you haven't, this is still an enjoyable short story collection. There was some I really didn't get into, but there was some I really enjoyed. And the artwork at least makes this worth the read. Very unique artwork for a manga book. I really enjoyed this one. Highly recommended. I can't wait. Hopefully Pushkin releases some more manga releases because I really like the overall look of this book. And I really like this artist's artwork. So that was Kafka. Next up, we have a new Drawn and Quarterly release, and this is My Picture Diary. This is more of, like it says, a picture diary than an actual manga series. And it is written by the wife of Yoshiharu Suge, who is a famous mangaka. And this is, you know, like it says here, a picture diary about daily life in 1980s, kind of showing how she had to deal with having a mangaka as a husband, his kind of depressed things that he would deal with, and then also having to raise their children. So you basically get a page every picture, and then a little writing on the side kind of describing what went on that certain day, and how she dealt with it. So you get, it does read pretty quickly. You know, it doesn't feel too much different than a manga with, you know, just with more writing, less pictures. But I did really enjoy this. It was a good look into being the wife of a mangaka. It has a nice afterword here by, you know, by Ryan Holmberg, who does a lot of the after supplemental stuff in these Drawn and Quarterly and other publishers' volumes. But just a really nice release. If you're looking for something different, definitely check this one out. And that is My Picture Diary by Drawn and Quarterly. Okay, next we have a couple Ponnet Mon releases. First one we have is Blue by Kariko Nananan, is how you pronounce that. And this one is a high school Yuri series. I didn't know anything about this one going into it, other than I was just trying to collect some more of the Ponnet Mon manga releases. And this one has some really nice artwork. As you can see here, very unique kind of faces. But it basically follows these two girls who are romantically involved in high school, and then one of them ends up breaking the other one's heart. And so it's just they're kind of getting into adulthood and how they deal with their relationship and how it goes. So I don't want to tell you too much about what goes on in this. I don't know if this one's in print anymore, but if you find this was an enjoyable Yuri one-shot. I definitely really enjoyed this one. The artwork's nice, the characters are nice. Looking forward to checking out some more works by this creator, and that is Blue. Okay, and the last Ponnet Mon release that I read through was Kinderbook. This one I liked quite a bit less than Blue. This is a short story collection. And this one, the artwork, more to me looks like kind of American indie comics than manga. Has definitely a unique art style, a little more busy, kind of muddy looking on most of these. But the stories in these ones, none of the stories really grabbed me that much. There were a couple stories that I almost had a hard time finishing. This last one here, for example, I kind of had to force myself to finish it. But overall, just a kind of average to below average short story collection. I wouldn't really recommend this one unless you find it for cheap. And that is Monokuro Kinderbook. Okay, so next up we have a out of print older DMP release, and this is Start with a Happy Ending. It says number 1, but this is not. This is just a kind of one-shot short story collection. There's not another volume after this. And I only picked this up. I've never heard anybody talk about this volume. I saw this at a used place, and I just really like the artwork. There's very unique looking cats on it. I thought it just looked like a cute kind of series. And it follows, it's basically almost an anthology where it is about, or not an anthology, an episodic series about every time someone dies, they get to be reincarnated as a cat for 7 days to kind of fix up or handle any of the issues that they had left going on Earth. They get 7 days living as a cat to kind of try to fix anything that they had left going on. And it sounds cute. It is cute. The artwork's cute. but overall it's just kind of tedious. I didn't really find any of the stories that interesting. It was a little boring, other than the cuteness of the artwork. So if you're into cats and you find this for super cheap, then check it out, but not anything that I would really recommend you go hunting for. Okay, so lastly, I read through a bunch of Makoto Shinkai manga or adaptations. And if you don't know, Makoto Shinkai is an anime director who has had a bunch of their anime films adapted into manga. And I hadn't heard anybody really rave about him, but there was a Right Stuff bundle for a bunch of them like a year ago, and so I picked up a bunch. The only one of his works that I had watched the anime of is this one here, which is Voices of a Distant Star. I did watch that one back when it came out forever ago, back when I watched anime, and it's only about 30 minutes long, I think, but I did really enjoy it. So this is actually the one that I enjoyed the most. It's kind of a high school romance where these two kids are just starting their kind of friendship romance, and then one of them, the girl, gets recruited to be a mech pilot. So she, she's in outer space fighting in a war in a mech, and she ends up, she's still texting this boy. They're texting back and forth, but over time it takes longer and longer. So she's still a kid up in space in a mech, and he's getting texts from her like that she sent in like 5 years later. So it's just a kind of interesting sci-fi romance story. I did enjoy this manga. It goes into a little bit more depth from what I remember about the characters, considering the anime was only about 30 minutes long. So this one I did really enjoy. Next up we have The Garden of Words, another Makoto Shinkai one. And this one I did not care for at all. The story was a little silly. The overall theme of this is follow your dreams, but everything between the characters was so overly emotional and weird going on between this high school kid and this old lady. He wants to be a shoemaker, so he draws shoes, draws women's feet, and she sits on park benches drinking beer in the morning. And they, over this one volume, end up becoming friends / maybe more. Just a very weird story that I didn't really understand what any of the characters' motivations were and where anything was going. It's just weird friendship / romance story. Even without the age gap stuff, it's not very good. Just not for me. I didn't really enjoy this one at all. Okay, and the last one of these Shinkai releases I read was Weathering with You, which is a 3-volume series. So this one I think also is an anime film. I've heard people rave about the anime film, but at least these 3-volume, this manga adaptation, it was just okay. Again, nothing I was too impressed with. The artwork is fine. The story is a little more interesting in this one, about a boy who kind of teams up with this girl who can control the weather, and they end up doing that as a job, trying to help people. So it's a little more interesting than The Garden of Words as far as the story, but everything just kind of goes along. Like, it's just very average of a story and average characters. Like nothing grabbed me in this series. I just didn't find any of it very interesting. I read through the 3 volumes and it was fine, but I kind of don't really have too much to say about it. I couldn't even tell you, this was one of the more recent things I read in November, and I can't really tell you what happened at the end. It just kind of went through the motions. It wasn't very exciting to me. So I don't know if I'm going to continue. I have 3 more Makoto Shinkai releases. I don't know if I'm going to read them. I'm going to kind of think about it for a bit if I'm actually going to read those, or if I'm just going to get rid of all of them. But I think maybe these are more enjoyable as anime films more than manga adaptations. So, if I ever do engage with his material again, it might just be in that format. But that was it for the month of November. Okay, so that was everything that I read in the month of November. If you have any thoughts, complaints, anything about anything I discussed, any of the books, any books you would recommend based on what I liked, didn't like, please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great one.